Tanse, I'm Kristanach Kate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. A man in New Brunswick has been arrested following a shootout last week in Kingsclear First Nation. On April 15th at around noon, Keswick RCMP responded to a report of an assault at a residence in Kingsclear. When police arrived on scene, they found a 34-year-old man who threatened them and barricaded himself inside the home with a weapon. When the RCMP SWAT team showed up, the man opened fire. Dozens of shots were fired through windows, striking several police vehicles. One officer was struck in the head but was saved by his helmet. Police fired tear gas, forcing the man and a 50-year-old woman to come out. Michael Sabatis has been charged with a number of offenses, including attempted murder. The woman was released. Sabatis made his first court appearance in Fredericton Provincial Court on April 16th. Kingsclear is just 20 minutes west of Fredericton. Saskatchewan RCMP has also arrested 2 men following a homicide investigation in Waterhen Lake First Nation, located north of Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan. On February 8th, Saskatchewan RCMP responded to a shooting in Waterhen Lake. 29-year-old Antoine Ham was found with serious injuries. He was taken to hospital but died of his injuries on February 13th. 42-year-old Logan LaPratte has been charged with first-degree murder. Derek Lasasse, who was originally charged with manslaughter, is now charged with 1 count of second-degree murder. Lasasse appeared in Meadow Lake Provincial Court yesterday. Last week, we profiled the Kenora Kiiwetinoong riding and its candidates. It's one of the 36 ridings identified as a swing riding by the Assembly of First Nations. Now we bring you some voters from that riding as they tell you the issues that matter most to them. With more, here's APTN's TR Wheatley.
Shoal Lake 39 is one of 40 First Nations within the Kenora Kiiwetinoong riding. Last week, NDP candidate Tanya Cameron was canvassing here, which had people talking about issues that matter to them. This is 26-year-old Rebecca Mandaman's second election where she could vote. She's noticed a shift this time around. Indigenous issues aren't at the forefront for any of the parties.
Indigenous people, we're still here, and I think going back at looking at the last few elections where clean drinking water was a major campaign platform, residential schools, Truth and Reconciliation was a big platform item for the Liberals and the NDP at the time.
This massive riding covers a third of Ontario, including many fly-in communities like Bearskin Lake, where Tricia Nothing lives. In past elections, she's helped set up a polling station.
I think that it's important that everyone cast their votes. If you're at the age of majority, I think everybody should go.
A big issue up north, access to basic living needs and access to the south.
Climate is changing, and this year we had a really short winter road. I think it's almost time to start looking into an all-weather road.
She says there's a housing shortage. Unfortunately, hundreds of reserves are also in the same boat. It's also why Tracy McKay moved from another fly-in, Big Trout Lake, 15 years ago, only to end up unhoused 10 years ago.
I lost my ex. He passed away, and my kids are in Whitecross Bay right now.
McKay hopes the riding's next MP starts with tackling homelessness and the drug problem, something that's become a national crisis.
Plus, drug use. I lost a couple people. Yeah, I quit a long time ago.
People living in and around Kenora are usually the deciding factor. Whoever takes Kenora wins the riding, and for the past 3 elections, it's gone to the Conservatives. But Andrea Campbell says despite poll predictions, the average person is tired of them.
We're tired of Pierre Poilievre's red herring issues and his attack on human rights and vulnerable people.
Campbell is also worried about voter suppression. In 2021, voters in the riding complained about not having polls in First Nations. Some ran out of ballots.
There's no oversight locally, and I haven't heard of what they're going to do to make sure that doesn't happen.
Despite this, back in Shoal Lake 39, Mandaman continues to encourage young people to vote.
This riding that we're in, Kenora area, the Kiiwetinoong riding, has been held by the Conservatives, which is usually a non-Indigenous person, but we make up a big part of the riding, and we've chosen to not vote in one of our own or participate in the election to allow one of our own to represent us.
Using the last days of the campaign to let other voters know there are 3 First Nation candidates to choose from this time around. TR Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Pope Francis, the Pope who gave an apology for the Church's role in residential schools, passed away on Monday. The Vatican confirmed his death earlier this week.
Devo annunciare la morte del nostro Santo Padre Francesco. Alle ore 7:35 di questa mattina, il Vescovo di Roma Francesco è tornato alla casa del Padre.
Pope Francis made his final public appearance over the weekend at the Vatican for Easter Sunday in front of thousands of people. He is the first Jesuit from Argentina and the first from the Americas who was born with the name Jorge Mario Bergoglio to the son of Italian immigrants. In 2022, Pope Francis delivered a historic apology to residential school survivors for the generations of abuse they suffered, first from the Vatican and then again from Musqueam in Alberta. He also said the residential school system carried out a cultural genocide against Indigenous people. It's reported that Pope Francis passed away from a stroke and heart failure. Many have referred to him as the People's Pope. Pope Francis was just 88 years old when he died. We now want to tell you about this week's web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, do you think the Catholic Church will continue making reconciliation efforts with Indigenous peoples following the passing of Pope Francis? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. You can go to our website at aptnnews.ca/polls to cast your ballot. This Monday was the opening day of the 24th United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. Thousands of people gathered at the UN headquarters in New York City. APTN's Angel Moore reports.
I'm here in New York at the United Nations headquarters on the first day of the Permanent Forum, where Indigenous leaders and advocates have gathered to discuss the challenges of implementing UNDRIP and the responsibilities of member states. Speaking at the General Assembly about women's rights is water protector Autumn Peltier. She says she has realized water rights includes women's rights.
That's why it's so important to protect our women and advocate for women's rights and protect our waters at the same time. So I believe it's all interconnected and it's all important to talk about on the same stage.
The delegation from Quebec includes 10 chiefs, youth, and our AFN regional chief, Francis Burrell-Paul for Quebec Labrador. He says there has been no action with UNDRIP since 2019, and the main concern is nation-to-nation discussions.
That consultation part, there's so many development on our territories, and there's been we're always, as First Nation, participate in a good way, in good faith in this relationship with Quebec and Canada, but it's not always the case.
Another delegation is the National Association of Friendship Centers. Samantha Jack is the youth executive. She looks forward to connecting with other Indigenous youth.
We're looking for further connections, finding and sharing in global solidarity the expertise that we offer for urban Indigenous people in cities.
National Chief Cindy Woodhouse Nepinak is here to meet with the National Congress of American Indians to talk trade with the implementation of UNDRIP.
We've had cross-border trade for thousands of years, and it's unfortunate when governments around the world want to push to put all these tariffs on when we've never had tariffs before amongst ourselves. We've traded since time immemorial.
Tuesday's events will discuss the impacts of resource extraction and reindeer. Angel Moore, APTN National News, New York.
We have more news coming up after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. A decorated Indigenous soldier from southwestern Ontario will be honored with a museum exhibit in the Netherlands. It will coincide with the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. CTV's Sean Irving brings us the story.
Dear Mr. Patterson, I have learnt with regret of the loss of your dear son, Corporal Welby Lloyd Patterson.
Mady Keir reads a heartbreaking 80-year-old letter written to her grandfather, consoling him on the loss of his son in combat in the Second World War. The document was discovered in a cigar box with other notices following her father's passing in the 1980s. Until then, she knew little about her lost uncle's story.
I knew I had an Uncle Welby. I knew he died in the war. I actually even named my son Welby.
With the initial help of her daughter, the London woman began to unravel the puzzle, learning her uncle had been awarded the prestigious military medal for stopping a massive German offensive in 1944.
He kept the enemy at bay single-handedly.
Wounded, Corporal Patterson spent weeks recovering in a military hospital. After rejoining his unit, he fought to liberate Holland before advancing into Germany.
He was hit by a sniper, and that's when he died, just a few days before the war ended.
Welby's sacrifice was never forgotten by those he served with. His commanding officer wrote this lengthy letter to the family. But Mady says it would take 80 years and an overseas exhibit for her uncle to receive the recognition he never got in Canada.
He fought under a flag that, mistreated them, and he still fought.
As part of the celebrations to thank Canada for its liberation, the Freedom Museum will open an 8-month exhibition telling Corporal Patterson's story and those of other Indigenous soldiers who served. Mady will be there on opening day, May 2nd. Afterwards, she'll visit the grave of her uncle in Holton.
Just looking at it and knowing he's there, why he got there, and how proud I am of what he did.
Now she is hopeful those here at home will feel the same.
And it's about time people thought about it.
In London, Sean Irvin, CTV News.
Indigenous writers are featured prominently in the 2024 Governor General's Literary Awards in a ceremony that took place at Rideau Hall on Thursday. They took 3 of 7 awards in the English category and picked up another in the French. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story from Ottawa.
Nonfiction, Winnipeg, Visions of Canada from an Indigenous Center.
It was an emotional day for Winnipeg Free Press columnist Nagan Sinclair. Not only is he the recipient of a Governor General's Literary Award, he also lost one of his parents in the last year. Sinclair says his father, the iconic Murray Sinclair, is never far from his thoughts.
It's a bit bittersweet because when I heard about the award, I was with my father, who passed away in November, and he was very proud, and of course he also put out a book, so he's immediately asking why he wasn't nominated.
Sinclair's book, Winnipeg, takes home the GG Award for Best Contribution in the Fiction category. Calgary Métis playwright Kelly Crow is also being recognized in the drama category. For her play, There is Indigenous Violence, and There is Righteous Violence, and There is Death, or The Born Again Crow. She also lost her mother recently and sums up her feelings in this way.
It's emotional life to be an artist. I feel like it's important for me to be really close to my emotions, and so then that means that at important moments they tend to flow outwards into the whole room. I just had to tell the truth in that moment, and that's what I had to share.
Niska writer Jordan Abel takes home the Fiction Award for his book Empty Spaces, and Innu author Ovila Fontaine in the French language category for Young People's Literature Illustrated Books for his contribution to Le Premier Arbre de Noël. Sinclair says non-Indigenous Canadians are driving much of the recognition Indigenous writers are currently receiving.
I think that's indicative of the explosion of Indigenous arts, but also the fact that the major publishing houses are listening to Indigenous stories and seeing them as marketable. And most importantly, I think it's Canadians that are driving that industry. They're driving the interest, they're learning, I think they're working towards reconciliation.
Crow has this to say.
But to see all the other amazing Indigenous writers up there. Just, it's really inspiring and really encouraging. And I just hope all of our ancestors are looking down on us, watching us. Yeah.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
An art exhibit showcasing two up-and-coming First Nations artists from Manitoba comes to Winnipeg this month. The themes are meant to challenge the way we think about urban development. APTN's Veronica Blackhawk has more.
So these pieces, to me, really spoke for my mom, who was a survivor, and the fact that when I was painting these, no one really had a clue on what Indigenous people went through.
Zach Ironstand and Marco Mueller are the artists behind Urban Shaman Gallery's latest exhibit called Junctions. Curated by Justin Berlavi, he chooses to work with street artists to convey the relationship we have with urban development and those displaced by it.
The issues that our communities go through were seen as the Indian problem, and that narrative hasn't gone away, the way that the media approaches things like addictions, things like houselessness.
While the general public disapproves the sight of broken bus shacks and abandoned shopping carts, Junctions puts them front and center, creating a space to reflect on the origin of that discomfort.
That's what people don't understand. With these people on the street, those are survivors. Those are people that are human beings, and we have this horrible like way of treating those people.
The Manitoban artists, Ironstand from Tutanawajibing and Mueller from Pukatawagan First Nation, have a strong connection to the topic. Both have mothers who survived the residential school system.
So the ghosts represent the children that were buried. The white sheet kind of represents them being covered and disposed of, and the orange bones represents the color of the residential school survivors.
Catch the exhibit until April 30th at the Urban Shaman Gallery in Winnipeg. Veronica Blackhawk, APTN National News.
Juno Award-winning musician Sebastian Gaskin is Dennis's guest on an all-new episode of Face to Face tonight, right after the news. Just a few weeks ago, Gaskin won the Juno for Contemporary Indigenous Artist of the Year with his song Brown Man. Gaskin feels the recognition is also a big moment for his home community of the Taskoyak Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. Here's a preview.
There's never been a community member who's sort of done it on the world stage such as this, and so there's just been such an incredible outpouring of support from everybody back home. Like last summer, I was invited back, and they put up this billboard of me outside of the community, and they presented me with a star blanket, and so yeah, the outpouring of support has just been amazing.
Definitely don't want to miss that. Weather and more stories are right after the break. Stay with us. Starting on east, Charlottetown 6, Halifax sunny and 5. Nain 0, the Grand River partly cloudy and 9. Saguenay 4, Quebec City 6. 11 in Toronto, North Bay 3. Sudbury 4, Wawa 4. Puckatawagan 0, Thompson -4. 8 in Winnipeg, rain in Brandon at 1. Regina 0, Saskatoon 2. 5 in Buffalo Narrows, Meadow Lake 4. 12 in Grand Prairie, Fort McMurray, rain in 12. Lethbridge 9, Red Deer 12. 17 in Kamloops, Campbell River, sunny and 15. 11 in Smithers, Prince George 11. 7 in Watson Lake, Dawson 8. Wrigley 3, Wati -4. -10 in Sax Harbor, Polituck -11. -1 in Arviat, Baker Lake -8. And Arctic Bay -4, Aglulik -9. Thanks for staying with us. Every year, First Nations University of Canada in Regina, Saskatchewan hosts a spring powwow to kick off the season for Indigenous communities. CTV's Sarah D'Souza Butts tells us how the massive event draws people from across the country and around the world.
People from across the globe travel to one of Canada's largest powwows, even from as far as South Korea.
I can feel the power and energy and spirit and pride of First Nation people in Canada.
Being introduced to the cultural dances and festivities for the first time, dignitaries from Hanyang University say the experience is powerful.
I can learn long history of Canadian people. It's not a history about 150 years. It's thousands of years of people lived here and their spirit inherited even in now.
They brought me and shared their culture with me, so I just thought it would be awesome to do the same and share my culture with them.
After participating in a cultural exchange trip in Korea, Tyrone Perot thought sharing the First Nations University Spring Powwow with professors from Hanyang University would benefit both communities.
I hope that they just get a good look into Indigenous culture and they get to experience what it's truly all about, which is community and traditions, and just being able to continue passing those down to new people and Indigenous people as well.
The First Nations University says the traditional event creates a space for everyone to come together to celebrate humanity and life.
The powwow community travels far and wide to attend powwows, and so it is our privilege to host this particular powwow, which has been happening for 46 years, and it's become very, very large.
Now opening it up to the world, Ban says he cannot wait to come back.
Please, many Koreans come to this powwow and feel the energy and spirit of real Canadian nations.
Sarah D'Souza Butts, CTV News, Regina.
Finally for us, Saskatchewan is mourning the loss of FSIN Chief Lawrence Joseph, who died over the weekend. He is being remembered for his leadership and dedication for Indigenous advocacy. CTV's Hallie Mandrick reports.
The FSIN community, along with many others, are mourning the loss of former Chief Lawrence Joseph, who died on Sunday at the age of 79 from complications related to a long-term lung condition.
An advisor, a caregiver, a psychiatrist, a healer, a man of prayer. He was also a man of the church. There's not a thing that Dr. LJ didn't do.
Joseph was elected as chief in 2006 after serving as vice chief for nearly a decade. According to his daughter, the residential school survivor instilled a sense of hope in those around him.
It doesn't matter where you come from, you can make change and you can do good. And because he talked about living with no food and having nothing as a little kid, despite all those barriers that come up in your path as you're growing up, you still have potential to do something.
During his time with FSIN, Joseph shared a passion for police reform. He worked alongside other members to call for justice, leading to the inquiry into the 1990 freezing death of Neil Stonechild.
He brought that passion to the
forefront and made a lot of people realize that things just weren't right in Saskatchewan and in Canada and the world.
Throughout his time, Joseph shared his knowledge and courage with the community. His efforts eventually helped lead to the creation of the Saskatchewan Serious Incident Response Team, a civilian-led unit which investigates serious incidents involving law enforcement members.
His controversy was because he didn't pull punches and he didn't back down. He made friends, if you can believe, with all those people that he battled with publicly.
During his lifetime, Joseph served with the Canadian Armed Forces, was a Prince Albert City Councillor, and was named a Lifetime Chief by FSIN, all while also spending countless hours volunteering within his community. Hallie Mandrick, CTV News, Saskatoon.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Tuesday, April 22nd. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast in a few hours. Make sure to join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Ekse.